Ba-da-da-dum, ba-da-da-dum. Rockstar X. Oh my goodness. If you do not know Joel Felsenstein, my brother from another mother across the pond over in the UK, you need to correct that right now. Rockstar X is doing amazing things to help people in the neurodiverse and the autistic communities. You need to connect with him. You need to connect with Rockstar X. He is one of our sponsors tonight, so I'm going to play this special video for you. I'm telling you what, and this is just a little sneak peek, but he and his former band have given me a couple of videos that are going to be in part of our music presentation when we're doing our live event September 27th. So Friday, September 27th from 12 noon Eastern time to 4 p.m. This crazy guy will be live for 4 hours in an old school telethon. We're going to be selling tickets for $20 a piece. All of that goes towards our Transformation Kitchen. If you don't know what that is, you should check us out, hr4u.org, and find out what we're doing. Now, to our other sponsors, I got to call out. This is so fantastic. I love Nick. Nick, the gifted bipolar writer. She has a trilogy, anthology trilogy coming out. 3 different books all coming out simultaneously. I have written in book 2. This is my second time out. The first time I wrote about my childhood and kind of what happened along the way that made me this crazy like this. And that was with Susanna Dawn and Dr. Constance Leland. That went internationally bestseller, multiple countries. We are so thrilled with the outpouring of support for that one. But Nick is, you will see her on LinkedIn as Nick the GBW, the gifted bipolar writer. And she is one of our sponsors this evening. We'll be talking about all 3 of the books all the way until they come out. Looks like September, October, sometime like that. But thank you, Nick, for your support. We appreciate you. And Circle of Friends Club. This weekend, 9th, 10th, 11th, Freedom Fight Expo is going on, sponsored by the Circle of Friends Club. That is part of their program to give information out to people that have had issues with oncology, that have mental health and wellness issues. Certainly a place of safety, a place that you can learn, that you can grow together. So big shout out to Circle of Friends Club and the Freedom Fight Expo, 9th, 10th, and 11th. Check that out. Get in touch with Jason Wilson. And without any further ado, we are bringing up tonight's guest, Shauna Griffiths, in the house. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up.
You're awesome.
This is how we do it, Shauna. This is how we do it. We're going to put your QR code up there. We get your banner here for you. That down below, people, is her website. We'll be talking about that. And up in the corner over there above her left shoulder is a QR code. You can scan that. That will take you to her amazing podcast. Again, we'll be talking about all of these things in the course of the conversation. But right now, Shauna, so great to have you on the show. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Oh, thank
Go
you.
Blue.
Go Blue. So folks, we both went to Michigan. I played basketball at the University of Michigan. It's thundering and lightning here. So if you hear that in the background, that's my apologies. So yeah, every time I talk to Chasen, I get all excited when I see that block M. And I feel like maybe that was like the audience clapping. It was in the big house or
Yes.
in the arena, brought me back to the days.
Love that. Love that so much. For people that don't know you, people that are in the audience or people watching on Team Replay, tell us a little bit about your journey, whatever you'd like to share, and then we'll start in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll kind of start in the present. I am founder of SLG Impact. I do coaching and consulting. Most of the consulting is around growth. And that is most of the time that's revenue growth. And the coaching element is really that space that I created, the platform of Leadership Athlete. And it has so much to do with my philosophy that has been a lifelong journey of evolving as humans, and I liken the path of a high performing athlete to the path of a high performing person, a high performing business person. And there's so many parallels there. So I spent a lot of time talking about, that awareness and that growth. And because when you're able to do that and have that mindset of the pursuit of optimal performance, then you can take yourself, your people who are in your care, and the businesses in your care to the next levels. So that's what I'm doing now. I have a background in business and marketing and partnerships and sales. I spent 13 years working in the NBA family, the National Basketball Association. It was part of, I worked with Nike in the start of the WNBA. So it's been amazing to see the WNBA really come front and center in women's basketball. I spent several years then I worked for the Nets right before they became the Brooklyn Nets. I left, actually. I had been at the Nets for about 7.5 years. So really cut my teeth in integrated marketing, partnerships, and went to the agency side, and I spent time at an agency that was sports and entertainment focused, both in a leadership position and in the agencies, but also in discipline, so leading people and teams across the country. And then I worked for a creative shop. And along those, somewhere in there, COVID happened. There's not a lot that's going on in sports entertainment during COVID. If anybody to remember that. So I was laid off at the beginning of COVID from a sports entertainment agency. That's what prompted me to start SLG Impact, and really just work to unleash the positive impact that I can have on people that I work with and in organizations that I work with. And then Leadership Athlete is something that I came up with last year and launched at the beginning of this year. I picked 100 people who I think are incredible examples of leading in an authentic way that is, again, focused on evolution. And I launched a first draft class for the Leadership Athlete this year. So our good friend Tiffany Castano, who introduced us. She is one of the first draft class members. And so there's so much more to come. There's part of what I do is also, which if people do check out the podcast, there's 3 episodes. The third is launching tomorrow, Wednesday, the 7th, which is related to the work I do as a part of Change Force management consulting firm. So I've done a little mini series around revenue growth and with my colleague, Bob Wiesner. So it's been a lot of fun.
Very cool. Well, we're going to dive into a bunch of, I've got a million questions, so we'll see how much time we have. But the first thing I want to dive into is a little bit more of why Leadership Athlete. So I understand, and I don't think it was super clear to the audience maybe, but you played sports and you were very good. You played for the University of Michigan, so you were fantastic. People, you don't know how. Look, the big house is no joke, and you don't get to play for anyone on the big house. That was my dream. Like, I don't care if I carry the water bucket. If I can wear the jersey, I don't care. Like,
that's about how I felt.
Yeah, like that'll be. I'm good. But
yeah.
Anywho,
I
Talk
did
about
have
that. Yeah.
I did have a background in sports from the time I was 10 years old. I remember there's a gentleman, he's actually a first draft class member as well, Alonzo Littlejohn, I still visit him from time to time. He was my first coach when I was 10 years old, and he literally introduced me to the game of basketball. But what it introduced me to more than just like literally the game of basketball was there was someone who cared about my well-being, my development. That was part of how he coached. It wasn't just, can you shoot a layup? It was about fundamentals as humans, fundamentals, because you are going to be as good on the court as you were in school, as you were in life with your family. So, again, I kind of came up with that as a foundation. And I have a tendency to be pretty intense about things that I want to pursue, full admission, which I've worked to dial back a little bit. But I just was a bit, basketball was so much for me, and it provided a community. It provided, again, that coaching. I learned to be coachable. I learned a lot of these fundamentals that I weave into the leadership athlete mindset. I learned that I needed to work on my air quotes game, literally in basketball. I needed to do that. And to your point, in order for me to be able to play at that next level in college, it took a lot of fortitude, resilience, working and working on myself so that I could be better for my team. And so again, that was my foundation. And I translated that. I played in college, and then I translated that when I started working, that I was going to operate with those same fundamentals. And because I knew it worked in sports, and so that's what I knew to take into, my team was the people I was working with. When I was worked with Nike on behalf of the WNBA. And so we had leaders. I guess I thought of them as my coaches, and my peers at the time, they were my team. So it to me, it's so translatable. And my calling card as I continued in my career was actually leading people and leading business at the same time. And I've always believed that if you pour into the people and if you take care of them and help them elevate their game, then the work takes care of itself. But you don't do that by just telling people what to do. You do that by learning about yourself, having key takeaways about what's working, what's not working. How do you be better for your people? And again, that's when the work will become better because everybody's enjoying it. And again, it was just something that became my calling card over time. And I was also seeing a lot that I was really disappointed in what I was seeing in the seat of leadership from a lot of people. And it got to the point, again, when I was at the start of the pandemic, when I was reinventing myself, which I say that we are able to, actually not should, we are able to reinvent ourselves as many times as we want to or need to along the path of becoming who we are meant to be. And I truly believe that. Yeah. And part of when I started SLG Impact, and it was the start of COVID, and there was all this disruption in the world and people from marginalized communities just being attacked. And I thought, especially as a white woman, I have to do something to be part of the solution, or I'm part of the problem.
Good for you.
So that was really part of what was my impetus for me to do the work I've been doing, to continue to, what actually drove me to create the podcast, which it's called This with Shauna Griffiths. And my friends, scan the code. My friend Scott Hallman was instrumental in helping me to come up with the name and some of that stuff. So if he's listening or not, thank you, Scott. But the whole premise of it was elevating voices of diverse, authentic leaders, because I was, again, seeing too many people who I thought were not representing leadership qualities that are actually for the people and for the business. It was more about self-preservation at all costs. And I thought, well, I can't really go on LinkedIn and blow them up. So what I'm going to do is create a platform where I can elevate the voices of the people who I see, doing it in a way that's more effective. And for me, it's been about representation in the seat of leadership. Because if you only see a person who looks like the same person and they're being, I don't think I can swear in here, being an a-hole, then you don't have to be that way to be a leader. You can look different, sound different, have a different style. You can be authentic and you can represent different, groups. And I really have just wanted to be able to put that forward because I want to be a part of the change and being a positive impact. And sometimes when I say that, it sounds kind of hokey, but I really believe it.
Not at all. No, I'm cheering for you because
Thank you.
Look, first of all, I want to take a step back and say Tiffany Castano,
Yeah,
good grief.
she's amazing.
Jefferson Award winner. I mean, how many times do you meet Jefferson Award winners? How many times do you find people that have been recognized over and over again by their city, by the area that they're in, by their peers, and win all kinds of awards for being in the DEIAB space?
Yeah.
I'm incredibly honored and blessed to be a partner with Sefer and her, and just a tremendous human being. So you do what I do, and you surround yourself with outstanding human beings that shine a light, help you shine a light on what's right.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's why I really like your show. And that's why I really respect the work that you're doing, because when you take the position of positivity that, I'm going to talk to all of these people, I'm going to surround myself with all of these fantastic voices, and I'm going to share them. I'm going to put a microphone and a camera and whatever. We're going to share this out to everybody else so that people understand here's the way to go, because calling people out doesn't work.
No.
It just doesn't work. But shining a light on what does work, hey, you know what? You reach one person, you've won. You win. And that's really how that rippling effect works. Because when we actually are athlete leaders, when we actually listen, when we actually care about the people around us and create safe spaces and do the work on a daily basis to care about the people around us, our bottom line is going to thrive.
That's the thing.
Because our people are thriving. We create the space where they can bloom where they are, where they feel safe, and they can fail forward, and they can learn and upskill and cross-train. Guess what? There's less layoffs. There's more productivity. There's healthier and wealthier people inside the organization, and your organization will blossom because of that. And it has a tremendous impact and rippling effect beyond that.
Yeah.
It affects them, their families, their communities, and beyond. So cheers. It is not hokey at all what you were doing. It's freaking fantastic.
Thank you. And I love the way you describe that, because you were literally describing what I talk about is leadership as a sport. So the working at your game, the practice, the taking care of it, the coachability. And I was actually listening to something, I can't remember what podcast it was on. If I think about it, I'll say it. But the person was saying that, the guest was saying that athletes, artists, musicians, singers, you know what they have throughout their entire career? Coaches. They are constantly working to take their game, air quotes game, to the next level. And that is something that I really believe that if we can bring that into the business world where people can be, it allows you to be a bit vulnerable. You don't have to be perfect. It's not about perfection. The pursuit of optimal performance, even though I talk about it as optimal performance, it isn't about, I'm going to be perfect and everybody should be like me. It's about, gosh, how can I be better for myself and others and the business? So, that's why I look at it that way. And when people ask me, who do you work with? When the coaching I do, the consulting that I do, you know what I say is, I want to work with people who are willing to do the work, because I can't give you all the answers to the test. I don't know, when I'm working with someone, I don't know the minute details of every single day and every single person, but I can work with them, see some trends, help to shift some things, but they have to be able to look at themselves and have some awareness and then start to apply some things. And then that's where we work together to move it forward. And to be honest, that is whether it's coaching or it's consulting. When I'm coaching, I bring a consultant, my consultant brain to it. And when I'm consulting, I bring the coaching brain to it. So yeah, I mean, I just think that those are really fundamental elements of the path forward, I believe, for people to be more effective leaders. And to your point, have happier, more effective business, happier people and more effective business.
It's funny. It's funny that the data has been out forever. So here we go. We talked about this previously. So there are people a lot smarter than this hockey mug right here. You're welcome, Jody.
You can only say that once.
That was it. That was my one time. You're welcome, Jody. But there are people, Harvard, Cornell, Stanford, Forbes magazine, Money magazine, Wall Street Journal. There are people that are brilliant that have been talking about, here's all this data that shows if you pour into people, your business is going to thrive. Oh, and by the way, if really, truly the only thing you care about is the bottom line, well, fake it and pour into your people anyway, and they will sprout and grow, because if you can do that, you're going to see incredible things happen. I find it hard to believe that someone who really only cares about the bottom line will have an easy time pouring into people, but literally it's been out there forever, but yet we still see so, and just like you said, you see so many leaders over and over again that are failing. And it really bothers me, especially in this regard, when we see mass layoffs and how they handle the layoffs.
Oh my goodness.
That really like strikes a chord with me. Like, not only did you fail, but you failed multiple times. Now you failed yourself, you failed the company, you failed your people, and you failed how you handled the situation. It shows a lot of lack of emotional intelligence on your part.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I digress.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think you're right. There's been so many episodes of, or I guess waves of layoffs, especially in these last 5 years. And it's truly telling how people in organizations treat people. And if you're in a seat of leadership, I'm not calling you a leader per se. If you are in a seat of leadership and the last time that you talk to someone is when you let them go, that's the last touch point that your organization has with someone, there's something really wrong.
Whoa.
There's really wrong. And this stuff happens all the time. And so, I think it's part of why I'm vocal about things and I'm really honest about how I feel and experiences I've had, is because this continues to happen. And how do we help people that are affected by that be able to shift their perception and not let that cut their legs out from under them, not let that experience make them think that that's the only way to lead, and that perhaps they then have to do that in their next role or be completely demoralized. Again, we can look at some of those and listen, I've been laid off twice in the last 5 years because of the economy and shifts and all these things. And it's really hard. And in that moment where you're looking for people to be helpful to you, even the company that laid you off, that you put all that time and energy, if you don't get that, again, like, well, what are you going to do? And so that's part of what I say to people is, this is a mindset that anybody can choose to call it subscribe to adopt, to adapt how they're operating, and think about it and go, you know what? I want to continue my pursuit of optimal performance. Well, what do I need to learn? What are key takeaways? What do I need to, quote unquote, get in the gym and start to practice? What reps do I need to get in? Because here's the thing, if you get laid off, what do you have to do? You have to reinvent yourself to some degree. You need to go in and practice having conversations and interviewing and doing all these things that a lot of times you don't like to do. And I'll tell you what, I think back to when I was at the University of Michigan and we had to do preseason training and two-a-days and lifting and all this kind of stuff. There was so much that you don't necessarily want to do, but you know it's going to make you better. And how do you, if you just were laid off and you have to go through a series of interviews and rejections and all that, well, how do you stay resilient? How do you stay coachable? How do you do these things? These are choices that we make every day. And I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying there is a way to operate that is a choice. And that's part of why I've created this, is to give people a different option.
I love that. Yeah, and I have nightmares sometimes about burpees. So I literally, if you've never done one of and I don't mean like you just drank some soda, people, you can look it up. You can look it up. It's painful. It's very painful.
Yeah. No, I know I have my own PTSD flashbacks to like running and practice, and there were like vomit bins on the court. But I mean, but that's the thing. There's so much that again, we can kind of look at high performing athletes. Listen, everybody's paying so much attention to the Olympics, and they're seeing that we're inspired. Why are we inspired? Because we can see that imagine the amount of work that they have put in over the years to get to that pinnacle moment. Yeah. And everybody's watching them. If you actually think about it, people who are listening to this, there's a degree to which you're doing that every day as leaders. You got to put in that work, the reps. How are you going to get better every day? Because you're going to go into one pit, say it's new business. I'm putting my growth hat on here for a second. You're going to go and you're going to pitch. Well, you know what? Sometimes you're going to lose. Sometimes you're going to fall on your face. Sometimes you're going to have a teammate that is horrible and doesn't perform. But how do you help? How do you take it to the next level every time? Because most of the time, giving up or just going on and pretending it didn't happen, that's actually not the path to continued success. That's not the path to move forward. Again, I'm not saying, I do think that there are times when we have to say, done, I got to cut my losses. I need to move to something else. But even that requires, I believe, this leadership athlete mindset where you're like, oh, this isn't working. What choice am I going to make to change the situation, change the way I'm perceiving the situation? How can I lean into my resilience? Who can I reach out to and learn from? And can I be really coachable in this process? And those are all those fundamentals that, again, they're choices that we can make every day. And it's actually really fun having the leadership athlete platform and the draft class and everything, because a lot of times that people hear it and they're like, oh my gosh, it is this community of people that is growing and it's like-minded. It's just like a team. I've been reconnecting with a lot of my teammates from high school and from
the picture. Yeah.
and from college. And you get with those people. And one of my friends, Amy, says, forever family. And that's the kind of thing when you're around the people that have this mindset, a lot of times it feels like you can scale a wall, because you have those people around you and you can look at them and learn from and with each other, be vulnerable. And I feel like it gives a sense of community and belonging, which I think is just really important. And a lot of us are looking for.
I love that. And I agree with you. I was not the best athlete at all. And we talked about this before the show, that, I just stopped growing. Like everybody else kept growing and I just stopped. But I put in the work so that I could play. I put in the work so I could do what I wanted to do. And I think that mindset is really important. And even now, and we've talked about this, when we met previously, but whether it's, overcoming your addictions, whether it is overcoming a stinky mindset, whether it's overcoming a layoff, it doesn't matter what it is, having the mindset of I need to work on these things and I've got to grow. And that all of these uncomfortable conversations, these courageous conversations, these things that I'm going to do to challenge myself and make myself better will literally pay off as you grow and as you go. So I love that. And I guess that kind of brings me into my next question. Someone comes to you and they're in the middle of it. I mean, things are not going well. People have been telling me, I saw Chasen's show and I had to talk to you.
Yeah.
If he told me one more time to scan that QR code, I was going to scream. Scan that QR code. Go to her podcast. It's fantastic.
You're amazing.
But if someone comes to you and they're in the middle of it, like, where do you start?
Yeah. I think a start is working to dial down the intensity of the emotion that's going on. And because a lot of times when we're in that state of being in the middle of it, it feels like a tsunami is upon us. So I think there's a bit of unpacking a bit of where's the awareness, where's this really coming from, where's the upset coming from. And it's not about I'm a therapist, that's not what I mean. Sometimes people are like, well, I'm so upset because this person did that to me. I'm like, okay, let's talk about that a bit. So it's right away, it's just understanding what's going on. Where does the person want to take themselves? What's their level of awareness? I use a tool in my coaching practice and in my consulting that's called the GC Index. And it's an assessment tool that really helps people to understand their natural energies, or also known as proclivities. And again, that's about getting to know ourselves. Because again, when we're in that tornado and that vortex, a lot of times there's a lot of like finger pointing and feeling like not really understanding why things are going on and reacting and acting. And so if we can pause and get to know ourselves a little bit better, how do we tick in a certain way? So the GC Index, it assesses they identify 5 different energies, and you understand where you have more energy or less energy. It's not good or bad. And then you're like, oh, that's why I have those tendencies. That's why whether it's I gravitate toward creative thinking, or I gravitate toward implementing, or, so that is something that I use and then I weave it into the work that we do together. There's an AI tool that's a part of it. So the work I do is meant to be very actionable. It's not, I'm going to talk to you forever, or give you this, 50-page deck that goes and sits on the shelf. It's every time we talk, what is the takeaway? What can you put into action? There is an element of, again, the AI tool that you can immediately use to assess the way you're talking about yourself. Are you actually talking about yourself in a way that reflects your true energies? Or are you just using language that you heard somewhere else, or you kind of think you're this way? And so when we can really know who we are authentically and be able to speak to that, it's game changing. It's so, then we can just be, and we can just speak to people. And, it just takes away a lot of that, I don't know where to go, or I don't know what my strong suits are, and things like that. So those are like beginnings of how I work with people, in the coaching space, especially. But I'm also able to use it in the consulting space as well.
Oh, I love that. I love that you're able to dial in. And one of the cool things that you said that I absolutely agree with is taking that emotional level down, because that is probably one of the hardest things doesn't matter how good of a leader you are, when everything seems to be going awry, and you've been doing all the right things, and then just a chain reaction of bad stuff happens. And we saw a lot of that in COVID, because who was ready? No one was prepared.
I was not.
No one was ready for, okay, my workforce is now either going to be gone or working from home, and I don't even know how to communicate in that way. And it's like, what do I do with my hands? Ricky Bobby moment. So all of these people had to relearn and unlearn, and then and as you astutely mentioned, the world was on fire. I mean, literally, there was so much angst going on at the same time as millions of people were struggling. So I have to say, I love that, because you got to bring that, you got to take away that knee-jerk reaction.
Right.
You got to take away those, that instant, just sub everybody. We're going to just be reading all the subs.
I think that a lot of times when when they're looking for support and coaching in those instances, it's really important. I try to meet them where they are every time we talk. And there's going to be some days where things are okay, or gosh, they feel like I'm not really sure if I need to talk today. And those are usually the times when they need to talk most. But I think I've gone through a lot of coaching. I have an absolutely amazing coach named Leslie Harris, who I've been working with for 9 or 10 years. And I will say, folks, if you have a coach that doesn't have a coach, find a new coach. I think it's really, really important. But on the dialing down of emotion, something that Leslie has said to me that I repeat, I actually was speaking to a client earlier today and used this, is make it clinical. If we take away the what ifs, the fear, the sadness, all of these things, and we just get really clinical about it, we're solving an issue. We're solving a business issue. And sometimes a lot of times as leaders, we have to make really hard decisions. And sometimes we want to be human about the way we make those decisions, but we also have to be clinical in order to dial down the emotion and get forward. And again, if you think about athletics, you think about, again, the Olympics, you're seeing these amazing athletes and they have to dial down their emotion to be able to perform, right? You see them meditating, you see them talking to themselves, they get really clinical, and then they go attack and they get done what they need to get done. So again, I just use that reference because, again, I'm kind of pointing to leadership athlete. And folks, as you're listening to this, leadership athlete does not mean that it's for athletes only. It's not, someone could have never been an athlete. The thing is that most people can look at high performing athletes, again, the Olympics, and say, aha, I see something there, and there's a parallel in business and how I want to perform, not performative performing, but how I want to operate is a better word.
Yeah. I want to be respectful of your time, but I also have a couple more questions. So if you'll indulge me, please. I would love to find out what, and you might have talked about this slightly in the beginning, but what encouraged you to do a podcast? Because I know when I started, I was like, I don't want to do this. I really literally, and I used to play it as a musician. I played multiple instruments. No problem, got it on stage doing stuff, but this was weird. It was like a totally different thing. And doing the lives, I'm like, so what prompted that you're like, I'm going to have a podcast?
So it was a strategic thing that I started in the beginning of early part of COVID. And again, I felt so passionate about what am I going to do to be part of the solution instead of part of the problem. And I needed to do more than just call on my friends who represented marginalized communities who were being attacked in the world and murdered and all of these things. And so I came up with the idea of the content platform. And it was partly I live on a top of a mountain in Golden, Colorado. So it's not that I was out there at the time. I mean, no one really was, but out there in the time, like meeting people and doing all this stuff. So I was like, how do I stay relevant? And how do I continue to build my skills and capabilities and put myself out there and meet people? So it was kind of putting all those things together. And at the time I was doing some marketing work for folks, with folks. I did partnered with a very dear friend of mine named Elisa Padilla to do the social justice campaign for the Detroit Pistons, which is an incredible experience. It still runs today. I did some work with Lego to develop a brand partnership strategy for them for their 100th anniversary. So 100th anniversary. I'm blanking on that, but that's just details. But again, it was like I was doing all these things that I needed to stay relevant. I needed to put myself out there. So those were strategic business reasons I did it, and the real desire around the leadership space and to be a difference maker. And it was also something where I knew I needed to push myself. I needed to grow. I needed to evolve. And it was related to finding and using my voice. For many years, I found and used my voice when I really had to. Usually it was like to protect my staff or to protect myself or to those type of things. And it was very clear to me. It was hard for me literally to get the words out of my throat at times. I remember having to go into the person who was my boss at the time. And like, I kind of did this back bend before I had to go into his office because I was like trying to open up my throat so the words would come out.
Oh.
So I say this because the things I talk about, the growth, the evolution, these are things that I practice. I'm not sitting here preaching. Part of me pushing myself to do that is to put myself out there, to use my voice, to grow and evolve myself. And so, but I was really concerned when I started it that I would be putting on this performative thing that was all about me. And I was so concerned with it that I actually asked someone else to do the hosting, which it's kind of funny in hindsight. I'm like, what a silly thing that I did. Because there were several episodes and I was like, yeah, this is not really working the way I envisioned. And it was because it wasn't my voice. And I had to push myself to actually come forward and be on, to speak, to be on camera and get over my insecurities. It wasn't that I was so much worried that people would not like me or whatever, but I didn't know what the heck I was doing. But my husband always reminds me, oh, Tiffany, sorry, I see her little note. Tiffany, we already gave you a shout out. Yes, my husband always tells me, most of us don't know what we're doing. We're just pushing ourselves and learning and growing. And, you know, and so that was a big reason why I started it. And then as I was actually doing it and seeing people's reaction to it and just seeing the fruits of my labor, and I don't mean that I had amassed this huge following and all these people were listening to it. It didn't matter to me in the beginning. Well, actually, the beauty of starting a podcast is nobody's listening anyway. So you can kind of screw up and learn and all this kind of stuff. And I look back at some of those early ones and I'm like, well, I was learning. But, you know, if we don't push ourselves and put ourselves in those situations, then we're kind of stuck on a rock. And so a lot of times in my life, I have to push myself because otherwise, and I have a refrigerator magnet that says something about sometimes you have to jump and build your wings on the way down.
No.
And that's a lot of times what I end up doing. And otherwise I'm getting in my own way. And I have to propel myself. And so those are the things I was doing. And like I was saying, it wasn't that I was amassing this huge following and all these people were commenting at the very beginning. It was like crickets. But I would hear from a couple people every once in a while, and it would get more frequent. And then they would tell me that it made a difference for them. I remember this one person said that they were who I've known him for a very long time. And he told me he was going through a really difficult time in his life and that he would listen to the show as he was driving back and forth to work or whatever it was, and what a difference it made for him. And I was like, if it makes a difference in one person's life, then that's what matters to me. And again, I know when I'm saying this, it probably sounds like, oh, that's really cheesy and canned, but that's what it's been for me. And people say to me like, oh, have you made all this money off your podcast? Folks, no, unfortunately, no. But there's been so many other bigger reasons for me to do it. And I truly know that I've evolved and I've grown. And it's been a joy to see other people who come on and see other people's responses to them. I don't know. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. And I keep evolving it. So this season, folks, it's not just elevating voices of diverse, authentic leaders. We are also breaking down hot topics, kind of like you would break down film in sports. See the analogy?
Yes.
So we break down hot topics. Exactly. So as I said in the very beginning, the current mini series is all about breaking down revenue growth. And there'll be other, obviously, topics as we keep going. But yeah. It's all about evolution and growth.
Scan that QR code above her left shoulder. It'll take you right to her website page that has her podcast on it. It's absolutely fantastic. You should have seen, and Tiffany can attest to this, probably Jason too. So I have like 4 partners, 5. Good grief. Like there's 5 partners that are at Mike Ashebrader and the Hounds of Business community. Kelly Steinica is in the house. Tiffany Castano, Jason Wilson with Circle of Friends. You heard me talk about him and sponsoring.
Amazing.
And my wife, Jody Forehand, is in the house supporting. Love that. Amazing. And she doesn't have to. Like I tell her you don't have to go on if you don't want to. And she's like, I'm coming on for it. And then she found out you played for Michigan. So she's like, I got to
Thank you.
But, my early days, my wife would tell you, other partners would tell you, I started doing the podcast, we only had eight episodes per season. So there was like 16 shows. So in between, when we're taking this massive hiatus, people are like, time to change podcasts? What? Like they would totally forget about it. And I was terrible because of my ADHD, OCD, all that. I would be wringing my hands on here. I would not be looking at the camera.
gosh.
I'd be talking to people like, yeah, okay, so tell me, and Jody's like trying to text me on the thing, go, put your hands down.
Hands down.
Look at the camera.
There's so much content out there. And so, again, I don't feel like I'm so special that everyone is, tuning in and critiquing me at all times. It's like, you know what? I'm hard enough on myself. I'm just going to have best intention, put something out there, continue to evolve and grow and improve is the goal. And I'm not claiming to be perfect. So if someone is going to put me against that measure, I don't have to own that. But nobody really is.
You're fantastic. I love the show. So it's great. I have like a list of podcasts, and what I do is I'll go in, watch a group of them because I watch it. We're at a higher speed, so I'll listen in, and I'll do that while I'm doing stuff around the yard or whatever. And so I will do them in spurts, so I can catch up with everybody's because there's a lot that I like. But
that means a lot coming from you. The work you're doing is amazing. Please. The amount of content you put out, and I truly appreciate your dedication to what you're doing, to people, to helping be a part of the solution, and not part of the problem. It takes every single person. It takes the energy from every single person to help be that force to drive it home. So it's truly an honor to know you, to be able to come on your show. It's been so fun. You're awesome.
Well, I appreciate that very much. This has been absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
For everybody that's coming in, and Tiffany, my friend, I know you have been running around like a bad woman since you moved. God bless you and Mike. I cannot wait to have Jody and I catch up with you guys again. It was so great meeting you in person. No
fair. We haven't met in person yet.
See?
It's happening, Tiffany.
Yes. Got to make this happen. And look, now that I know you're in Colorado, when we go see our buddies, hey, knock, knock, knock.
There you go. I might make you do something outside, hiking, something. I won't make you.
That's fine. That's all good. We love you too, Tiffany.
Love you too, lady.
We were giving you all kinds of praises earlier. Yeah. That's right. I got crazy.
I love her.
Oh my goodness. We have been talking to Shauna Griffiths, absolutely amazing human being, the founder of SLG Impact, the leadership athlete. The QR code above her left shoulder, scan that. It takes you right to her amazing podcast, This. I love the logo. Like I was mesmerized by the logo even before I went on. And I will tell you that this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for everybody that came in.
Yes,
and I appreciate everyone who supports the People Community events. What this show is all about is exactly what you just heard for the last 48 minutes. It's all about how can we as a group shine a light on great behaviors and move forward as a community to do fantastic things. That's what the People Community show is all about. I am so thrilled to have Shauna on here. It has been wonderful to have our guests and all of you that have come, and we'll see this on the replay. Thank you for being here. My name is Chasen Forehand. I'm with hr4u.org. We are different, not less. And thank you for all of our sponsors. Big shout out. We'll catch you next time. Have a great one.